So the question is, and I always get told off in the comments for doing that, should you spend $1,100 or about £1,050 on the new Flip 7? And if you're already a Flip owner, is this worth the upgrade? Well, to answer that last part first, here is every single Galaxy Z Flip. From the OG model back in 2020, there wasn't a Flip 2, they actually went straight to 3 to match the numbering of the Fold series, the 4, the 5, the 6, and now we have the 7. Look at that, the whole family's here. Although just looking at the main phone screen, you'd be hard-pressed to tell them apart. Well, at least until you close it and look at those cover screens, or, run a benchmark, or even take a photo. So this video is part review of the Flip 7, and also just a kind of buying guide of the entire Flip range, because since I have all of them, I figured I'd, run some tests, some camera comparisons, and see how far we've come over the last, well, I'll say 5 years, but 6 generations of Flip, even though we're on the 7. But in terms of YouTube video views, this got like 3 times more than the Flip. There's a lot of interest in this because it is a really big upgrade. I'd say the biggest upgrade we've had to Samsung's Fold. They finally caught up with the competition. It's getting a lot of grief for not having the S Pen, and also the battery life is basically the same as before. No change there, but otherwise, I really like the Fold, and it's a big upgrade. So how does the Flip 7 fare this year? Is it a similarly big upgrade? Well, not quite. I mean, this cover screen is very impressive, but once you move past the fact that you just have a slightly larger screen on the front here, and also a couple of design improvements, there's not a ton that's new here. And with that Exynos chip, could it actually be a bit of a downgrade? Well, you know what? Let's just jump straight in. Let's talk about the performance, the battery life, see what that Exynos has done to our beloved Flip. Geekbench 6, and we've got the Flip 7 on the far right there, the Flip 6 just next to it, coming from the Snapdragon 8 Gen 3, 3% faster in single core, 7.5% in multi-core. And in terms of graphics, if we jump over to the 3D Mark Wildlife Extreme test, it's 2% faster, and we get a lower stability. To be fair, the Flip 7 is still nearly 5 times faster than the original Flip, and if you have a 3 or 4 or 5, it is still a good deal faster. But it's only marginally faster than last year, and as I say, it throttles more. But you know what really stings? If we compare it to the Fold 7. Its foldable brother. This did come with a Snapdragon 8 Elite for Galaxy, and if I run the same tests with these two, well, it's hard to justify the Exynos, if I'm honest. The Fold 7 scores 50% higher for the processor in Geekbench, with a 20% higher graphics score in 3D Mark. We also have significantly higher stability, a much lower temperature, much higher frame rate, and it used the same battery. They both dropped 7% during the 20-minute test. And bear in mind, the Flip 7 FE, the $200 cheaper version of the new Flip 7, which has the same design as the Flip 6 and is basically just a rehashed Flip 6, they've actually swapped out the 8 Gen 3 for the Exynos 2400, which is a significantly lower end chip than the 2500 that you get in here, which is about the same power as last year's 8 Gen 3. So I don't have it with me here to test, but in terms of performance, I would extrapolate that the Flip 7 FE will be slower than last year's Flip 6, although I'll need someone to corroborate that. But hold your horses, Tom, who cares about benchmarks? This will play every game you throw at it, with ray tracing and high frame rates, and also the fact that both screens are 120Hz now is very nice. I should have mentioned that earlier, that is actually quite a nice upgrade for the cover window. Well, fair enough, although if you are going to spend $1,100 on this and use it for the next 4 or 5 years, you kind of want the best performance you can get and not their kind of second-class chip option. But how about the battery life? Has this, as Samsung promised, significantly improved the battery? Well, it's better. So I've got all the Flips going through a 10-hour YouTube streaming test. Let's see how long they last. And actually, it's the Flip 3 that kicks the bucket first, followed by the original Flip. And at the end of the 10 hours, the Flip 4 almost died as well, actually. It's just on 2%. But between the 5, the 6, and the 7, there's not a huge amount in it, especially when you consider that this year, with the Flip 7, we also have a bigger battery. It's gone up from 4,000 milliamps to 4,300. But then going back to the 3D Mark test, the Flip 6 used 9% of its battery versus 7% on the Flip 7. So the Flip 7 is the longest lasting Flip Samsung have launched. Excellent. Battery life was a limiting factor and they have improved it. In my experience, this is lasting like 10 to 15% longer than the Flip 6. And also no change to charging. Still 25 watt wired, 15 watt wireless. And this is very much a me thing because I drive a Tesla, don't judge me. I bought this like 4 years ago, but it doesn't charge on my wireless charging pad. I have to close it and like hold it halfway up. Just a little niggling issue with being a flip phone. It's not ideal that we have this Exynos rather than the Snapdragon chip, but it's also not the end of the world. It is plenty fast enough. There's nothing this can't do because of the chip, and for everyday use, even for high-end gaming and productivity use cases, yes, it's not as fast as that, but it is more than fast enough, and it's all you need. And you know what? Let me tell you some good news about the Flip 7, because while the camera hardware is exactly the same as the Flip 6, 50 megapixel main camera and 12 megapixel, 10 megapixel ultra wide. I put the specs next to them here somewhere. So I went into this not really with any expectation that the camera would be better. To my eye at least, it's a decent step up. Let me show you. There is a difference, and that obviously comes with the ISP in the chip, although obviously we've gone to Exynos 2500 now rather than Snapdragon. Samsung do say that their Pro Visual engine, which is all the processing and software and everything behind the scenes, is exclusive, like each iteration of it is exclusive to the new phone because it taps into the hardware and the chip and all that. So this is just a little 4K 30 video. I'm looking at the flex windows, the cover screens. Let's go outside and change the lighting here. Oh, it's a very nice day. Maybe we should go back inside. I'm just looking at the screens on both, and obviously the flex window on the 7 is much bigger actually, so I can see a whole lot more of myself. But I look kind of washed out on the Flip 6. It looks more natural on the 7. I also like the camera visualization. It gives that little sort of red indicator when I start recording around the camera lenses. Also a much bigger flex window so I can see more of myself. Still, however, can't record at 4K 60 when using the cover screen mode, which is frustrating. You can shoot 4K 60 and have the flex window cover screen, which I'm looking at and shooting on right now. Essentially, the cover screen preview is just that. It's a preview with some functionality for taking photos and videos, but if you want the full camera experience, which of course you do from the cover screen, then you'll have to open the camera from the cover screen. I'm actually shooting this with the main camera in log at 4K 60. I shoot pretty much all my video on the Samsung like this because all you have to do is swipe up from the gallery, tap color correct, and then save a copy, and you're good to go. And that way you get a slightly more unique look, you get a wider dynamic range, more natural colors, and of course if you want to tinker, you can add your own LUTs instead. Unlike iPhone where you have to shoot ProRes to get log, you can just use the regular video on here. Although by default it is only within the Pro Video mode, but in the camera settings you can enable it in regular video as well, which I would definitely recommend. Have a look at this though, same photo taken on all the flips. The biggest jumps seem to be from the original Flip to the Flip 3, and then actually from the Flip 5 to the 6. On the 7, you can see it's handling the shiny highlights on my forehead a little bit better, and the colors are just a little bit more natural, a little bit less saturated. And again here, the Flip 6 really is significantly better than everything before it. With the 7, a nice little refinement. It's definitely more pleasing to the eye, and impressive given we have the same camera hardware. And it's a similar story if we switch to the ultra-wide lens. They're all pretty bad, although the 6 and the 7 are notably better. I think the 6 is actually slightly out of focus there for whatever reason. But yeah, the Flip 7 has the best camera, the 6 isn't far behind, and basically if you have a Flip 5 or earlier, now's the time to upgrade. But obviously we do only have the 2 lenses with the Flip, the main and the ultra-wide. There's no telephoto, and unlike the Fold 7, which benefits from the 200 megapixel upgrade, borrowing from the S25 Ultra and the Edge, sadly the Flip 7 did not get the same upgrade. So the Flip 7's camera is pretty good. You can get some really nice shots with this. And you've got a ton of different modes to play with, including being able to record forward and backwards at the same time, dual recording. You can shoot in log, and also one of my favorite features is being able to long press on your video and then magically turn it into slow motion. So I've come away more impressed than I expected from the Flip 7 upgrade, as I say, considering it has the same hardware. But then looking at the Fold 7's upgrade, with its 200 megapixel main camera, it feels like the Flip has been shortchanged again. Still, the best bit about buying a Fold, whether it's an actual Fold or a Flip like this, is the fact that you can use the main cameras as your selfie camera. You've got that huge 4.1-inch flex window as your camera viewfinder. And if you do a timer shot, it actually counts down towards the camera lens. It'll glow red when you're recording. You've got the new zoom slider for much smoother zooming in and out, although you probably won't be zooming in that much given we haven't got a telephoto lens. But it's good enough, and I love being able to use the main cameras for all my shots. And it also acts as its own little tripod if you use it in flex mode. It's just a lot more fun to use. But going back to the design, and while it's not immediately obvious when you put them side by side, Samsung has shaved off about 1.5 millimeters from the overall thickness when it's closed, which obviously is the main issue with flips because it's chunkier rather than tall in your pocket or in your bag, so that is a nice upgrade. If you do buy Flip 7 though, or indeed any Flip, the first thing you should do is go into the settings, go into the Galaxy Labs, and then tap on Multi-Star. In the past couple of years, Samsung has streamlined this process, but basically it allows you to download full, fat, proper apps for the Flex window, the cover screen. And now with One UI 8, you can actually tap this little button to change it between full screen, horizontal, vertical, so you can decide how you want to use it on the front screen. And it makes it so much more functional than just swiping between widgets and lock screens. Would I want to play games on this or scroll through Instagram? Maybe not, but for answering a quick message or looking at navigation in Google Maps, it's a nifty little feature. Is it a gimmick? Well, that's up to you and if you would actually find this useful, but you can't deny it does look pretty cool. But with One UI 8, Android 16, the promise of 7 years of software updates, Samsung software really is very good, and I think on a Fold and a Flip device, I'd say it's best in class. The fact is though, if you weren't already sold on a flip phone, then this probably won't change your mind, but it is a nice evolution, and I think if you have a Flip 5 or earlier, I would definitely consider upgrading. But it is disappointing we have the Exynos chip. It is disappointing we don't have the 200 megapixel camera. And except for the bigger cover screen, there isn't that much fundamentally different. But I'm still having a great time using it, and I would say it is the best flip phone out there. And if you do fancy buying it for yourself, I will leave links in the description below. But let me know what you make of the Flip. Would you be tempted to buy it or upgrade it? Drop a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time right here on the Tech Chat.